But I think that a lot of times the best results you yield is, it doesn't necessarily need to be everyone in the room with an amp physically there, but everyone's contributions of thoughts and trying different ideas and everything will actually open your spectrum to things that you didn't think were possible or realize and everything. So
fun, but as of right now, most cities when I was doing that, and I didn't have any understanding America
when you want to achieve a goal, say you want to
citywide composting. I kind of, but I didn't understand kind of
Tiago, it's good to see you.
good to see you too.
Much appreciated for you coming by. How's your day going so far?
Man, it's been good. It's been a busy time, but I just really appreciate you having me on. I will admit, I mean, I've known both of you kind of peripherally. Is that the right word? On the periphery of knowing someone obviously more involved in my life, but it's just nice to get to know more people who are just genuinely in this and just love the creative. So,
dude, appreciate 100%. That a lot.
Yeah.
And
I just realized something.
Yeah.
So you play guitar, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And can you tell us a bit of like exactly what kind of style of music you play and how did you fall in love with playing guitar?
So the broad strokes would be teetering anywhere on the rock and metal spectrum. I love all types of music, so just really encompassing just a broad range of sounds has kind of been something that's been in my head, since I've been very young, actually. So I can credit my dad for getting me into guitar. He showed me Rush at a very early age, and being around an environment where music is playing and you just kind of soak up sounds without you realizing, Genesis is playing, the Beach Boys are playing, the Beatles are playing. It's just something where you learn and you kind of internalize things that become kind of part of your vocabulary. So guitar has always been something, honestly, from a very early age, like 6-7 years old, that has kind of been the focal point of like where I look at music and kind of how I like to interpret things. So, yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. And I was going to say, it's cool that you mentioned actually Rush because now I can kind of like go into your band Skybound and everything like that. Like I can see the influence because I can obviously pick up on the metal, the progressive metal sounds, like the melodic stuff, even like hints of classical things like that. Like that's where a lot of metal comes from. Right, But I can hear now or like picture where like the Rush influence comes in with just like the intricacy of some of your guitar lines, some of like even just the transitions and stuff, and the timing, like actual like song timing is very very key. But what would you say kind of got you, or did you come up with the idea originally of Skybound, or was it like a collaborative effort, like, or just?
Yeah, I gotta say I like the name.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. I mean, granted, I've kind of seen it here and there before. I think there's a game company or something roughly involved with that name, so it's definitely not a brand new concept, but it was just something that really encompassed kind of the overall ethos of what I try to do, or what we now try to do with it. So Skybound is something that basically started as an idea in my head that I was kind of too scared to do for a number of years, I would say. And it's not out of a fear of like, oh, it's gonna be like really bad. It's just I don't have the tools or the capacity at this moment to do something like this. Like, I just feel like perhaps I'm not ready. And you're going through high school and you're kind of going through college and trying to figure out who you are, and you're doing other musical projects that's, some of them are great, some of them, not so great. So, it's kind of a trial and error phase and everything. And I think that a lot of what constitutes like a really, really strong like musical base, whether it's by yourself or whether other people, is that kind of connection. And at least for me, it was meeting Jameson, who is
shout out Jameson.
Yeah, he's also the drummer in Hopper. Go check out Hopper. Hopper's amazing.
Yeah,
they're incredible. But it was something where, meeting him in high school and going through a couple different bands with him, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. I remember like he had left university, I had left college, and we're like, all right, let's just start this band. Let's do something that we genuinely want to do. And not try to have it fit into any sort of bucket of a genre and everything. It's literally just whatever feels right. So whatever iterations it's taken on in these past couple of years and everything, it's been that mentality, and it's just about kind of improving that as we go. Or trying to, I guess, right?
That's great. No, and I actually think that's really cool because I find like you guys have a sound per se, like in the sense of like you can, once you've listened to your music enough, it's like I can identify that, oh, this is those guys, this is Skybound. Right. Like it has its tone a little bit, it's got like its vibe, but I definitely noticed that you still do take all these elements, like you said, absorbing from all the other music, and that actually has a big play in it because it's like it is so different at the same time. Right. Like anyone hearing it for the first time would not necessarily hear two songs and be like, oh, these are the identical band. Like you guys really have its own broad feel, but then as you start to get to know the band, I guess, a little better, you would start to recognize just like your nuances, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just about pulling from a spectrum of music that really anything is valid when it comes to what can be used, and it's all about context, really, and like what I keep coming back to the word feeling because it's something that's not easily defined. It's something that it's a gut feeling, and it's obviously it's very frustrating because it doesn't happen all the time. But it's something where when you know that, it's undeniable. When it's like writing a riff or writing a song, collaborating or everything, it's that moment of understanding, okay, this is something real and creative, and this has the potential to be something really amazing. I would say like that right there is the crux of it. So yeah.
That's awesome.
That's interesting.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make a quick point actually, just because I saw, I know who Tash Sultana is, the artist. Yeah, amazing artist.
Yeah.
And I saw Tash post like an Instagram story, and it was kind of calling out like the AI, like new things like for writing songs. And I'm not trying to take away from people's like fun of just maybe utilizing a tool to like give them a starting point or maybe like create something. Yeah. But Tash was like mentioning in the story that it was like very much taking over in a lot of senses where people were just like becoming comfortable with not actually breaking out of the human box and trying to figure out what intricacies you have that create this song. Right. But they're taking structures and things that are just compiled into this like computer generated song, and even if it is new and catchy per se, it's like it misses the feel a little bit. And I feel like, and it's not, again, not to shit on people for going that route, but it's just also like, I feel like that takes away kind of what you're saying, like the real true feel of it, because you can't recreate organic, especially with the way that our minds work. I
actually, just for jokes, I went on to chat GPT.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And then I asked it to write a Hendrix song, like Jimi Hendrix, with influenced by Miley Cyrus, just for jokes. And it did it like verse, like chorus, verse, bridge, and it was all like structured. But like what the lyrics were, it was taking nonsense. From like Purple Haze, basically, like Purple Haze, and then add like another Miley Cyrus like lyric. So it's not it's not there.
I came in like a purple haze.
Yeah, it was kind of like along the lines, and you could tell it was very like, but it was still cool. Like it was actually shocking because at each end of the chorus or verse, it was like rhyming in a sense. Like it was
figuring it out.
Yeah, it was figuring it out. Yeah, songwriting. So it was pretty interesting. On that note,
it is bizarre, right? And it's like I think my main just like not point but like concern for it would just be that like anything in life, like you just don't want to overdo it, and I don't want it to get to a place where people are utilizing it as like a means to an end. Like this is gonna be the be all end all of everything in music creation, and I'm just gonna stop trying. It's like, but I also think it's not necessarily an evil thing if people are using it as a way for them to kind of spark their creativity. Because some people get stuck, and that's like totally fair. And it's like, or I've like played a cover song and switched the lyrics a little bit to something I like, just to kind of get myself in the zone.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna add on to that. I just feel like if you're truly like a real, like if you do art, then I don't think that you're gonna go that route.
It's true. If you truly believe in
you're-
the art of
If
it.
you're
yeah.
true, like if you're actually like actually want to create like music and like actually want to create like lyricism, you're not gonna use GPT, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody in like the industry who just wants a fucking quick like pop song to like, you know. But again, how organic is that gonna be in the end? I don't know. Who knows?
And meeting people, you realize that there are some real artists out there.
100%.
Absolutely.
Real actual people that want to create genuine art, and I think that is like, regardless of what style and regardless of if it's for you or not and everything, the style of music that you like to enjoy listening to, it's all valid, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's just awesome.
I respect that so much because I it's funny. I always kind of tailor myself more towards hip hop, just in the sense of that's what I like to perform, that's what I like to do. But I also am a huge fan of funk, jazz, blues, like things like that. That's what we're starting to do recently with our band and stuff. And like it's sick. We haven't even coming up with a name yet, but the vibe is like night and day. Like I love rapping the tracks, but there's something about a live band that does it for me. But
Kinda
I'd
like
still
NPR.
say, yeah, exactly.
Or
but
like live
I'd
sessions on DR.
yeah, but I'd still say that like at the end of the day, it's just like I love all kinds of different music. I could never pinpoint what my favorite is. Like there's no because I can't compare like the way that like an Ice Cube song makes me feel, you know, saying like fuck this shit, like fuck the world. I got you know, I got my life on lockdown.
Yeah.
As opposed to like listening to an introspective Pink Floyd song and like having like an emotional connection to it. It's like
not the same
it's not the same thing. It's the same thing on the level of like how it affects you, you know, strength wise, but it's not even close to the same concept, right? Like it's two different scenarios. And actually, I'm gonna look up the name because I just forget.
No,
Randy texted
absolutely.
me, but it just brings me to a cool point that I think you'll like because this was something that I don't know if I even told you guys about. Well, I might have mentioned it, but when you guys were jamming here before, so we used to be roomies with Randy, and Randy's in the band and everything.
yeah.
Fucking loves it, by the
Randall.
way.
He's
He
incredible.
talks of you guys so much. He's a very humble soul.
he's
and
amazing.
So Chrome Part 1. So there's a song called Cloud Generator, I
Yes,
believe.
yeah.
So there's this ending part with like an Alan Watts speech and everything, and you go into this like guitar transition, and you guys played it a few times, and I remember the first time I heard it, I was having a fucking just shit day, just bad day. It's in my room, just thinking about life, and man, I'm not joking with you. It's like I'm not ashamed to admit it. I like actually like started to tear up and cry to like that part, like, and it was just because I was thinking about things, but it hit me, and that's going back to the point of what you said about feeling. It's just like that kind of. And who knows your interpretation of it, what you were thinking when you wrote it. Maybe you have a different assessment of it. Well, you obviously probably do, but it's like it gave me hope. Like it was like that's just the reaction I got from it at the time. And it like really brought me out of it. And it just made me realize that like the power of things and like feeling can affect your mindset. So it was cool. It was kind of stupid though. Well, not stupid, but almost in a way. It's like every time I heard you playing that from then on, I'd be like in the kitchen. I'd be like... like not, you know, not full on go, but yeah, it's just, but yeah, it's cool because I think of those moments and I'm like, that's like, that for me is what music is about, you know? And it's like, it's not just that moment, but it's that effect that it has. And it's cool because, anyway, I was privileged enough to hear it. So.
I really appreciate that. I mean, I think it's that effect is, like you said, it's the same thing as like hearing the most amazing R&B singer and hearing the best verse and seeing the best painting. It's all the same thing, right? And it's just how you interpret it, right? So it's something where now for Skybound, our kind of next step moving forward is to incorporate vocals.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that's true. I forgot it is just strictly instrumental.
Yeah, so our first two records, you know, kind of explorations on trying to sort out this complicated world around and just getting out the melodies in your head, basically. And now with the third record, we're going to try to shift towards, we have someone in Ottawa who's going to be our singer and keyboardist, and it's going to be a whole wizardry happening. Yeah, it's going to be interesting on a technical scale, like from all the cables plugged in. So.
Yeah. Just like,
But,
is it like crazy like analog synth setups and stuff
No,
like that?
no. But adding synths, and then I'll have a keyboard rig as well. So I'll be moving from keyboards to guitar and back and forth. So it'll be interesting. But adding vocals onto the kind of template that we have, and not losing any of the creativity and the like whatever this part needs, if it's rock or if it's electronic or kind of jazzy or whatever it is, but now integrating words on top of that. I mean, obviously just given the nature of our music, it's not the type of thing where having a singer that's like, what the fuck is up, Mavericks? Like it's definitely not that type of vibe. So having someone that is a little bit more introspective and like just a way with words that suits the music. It's definitely a tall task ahead of us and everything. We're going to be headed into the studio in the early part of this year, so it'll be interesting.
Where do you mind if I ask where you're recording?
Yes, so we record a lot of the stuff ourselves.
Oh, right on.
We do the drums at a proper studio now. We'll be doing it at Audio Valley.
Yeah, shout out. Audio Valley is amazing.
Josh Hart is great.
Oh, Josh kills it.
Is amazing.
Yeah, from Hopper as well, actually.
Yep,
Yeah.
Hopper.
And then what? They just send you you get the stems after?
Yeah. So
Really?
we'll grab them, and then with all an amazing technology, and I mean Randy's a wizard with helping to organize stuff and everything. It's we're now compiling all the little ideas and everything, and what does this one look like, and what does this one look like, and sequencing and all that kind of stuff. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's something where also having a fifth member now, it's like, all right, how do we incorporate the keyboards in? How do we make sure that everyone can be heard so that's not too busy and everything? So it's just
Absolutely.
a kind of a reshuffling.
What would you say is like I guess your favorite part of either recording at home or more in the studio? Because like I'll just give my perspective on it real quick. Because like coming from an engineer, like it's always like I was always either doing my own thing or I was recording other people.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I noticed when I went to do a rap song with someone recently, I actually straight up went to someone else's house who had all this other gear, completely different space I'd never been, and I got to just go in a booth and focus on the kind of like you're saying with the drums and stuff, and someone else who was a professional had the control. And I felt like artist wise though that helped me so much because it like took me out of the headspace of just engineering. So what would you say, I guess, pros and cons or likes, dislikes of like one or the other, or do you prefer one over the other? Like,
yeah, so I think it just comes down to how comfortable you are with letting other people into your process, and kind of relinquishing even just like 5% of the control, right? And I find people are really passionate about their art, so sometimes they can be very possessive of it, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about because I sometimes do that.
Yeah. No, it's
Not in a bad way, but I'm just like I have a vision for something. I'm like,
yes,
I want it to sound like
you
this.
You see it in your head, right?
And you have to be open to like external criticism. Be like, hey, like and that's what I'm talking about for like you, me, and Dan. Like the hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
Because we record like every week now. We're just like songwriting.
Religiously
songwriting,
Monday,
songwriting.
Wednesdays, we're just like
we're super straight up to each other. We're like, look, I think that you could do this part of the verse differently, like better. And then you're like, okay, yeah. And then, but sometimes you might put up that wall, like, oh, I really like the way it sounds. But then if you delve into it a bit more, then you can oftentimes you'll find that it sounds way better and it makes the song way better. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's something that I personally had to kind of not only adapt but to implement as well, right?
exactly.
In my own personal
No, it's
process.
It's definitely interesting because especially nowadays when a lot of collectives of musicians do a lot of things remotely, it's very easy for one person to kind of do the boatload depending on what the dynamic is, right? But I think that a lot of times the best results you yield is it doesn't necessarily need to be everyone in the room with an amp physically there, but everyone's contributions of thoughts and trying different ideas and everything will actually open your spectrum to things that you didn't think were possible or realize and everything. So I program the drums myself, and we run Get Good Drums for the pre-productions. So it sounds great, but it's not what Jameson would specifically do.
Right.
So it's definitely not. It's obviously not a final thing. So that last bit of whatever creative. It comes from somebody else, right?
Yeah, and it's like, but you,
right?
Absolutely, and you helped influence his dynamic probably by
Yeah.
showing him kind of your idea,
exactly.
and then but you probably in turn appreciate the fact that he comes in with his own like flair.
Exactly, yeah. But to go back to your studio pros and cons. Okay, so relinquishing control is important, and I find depending on the studio that you go to. Will really dictate like how comfortable you feel. Like it's tricky because it really goes artist to artist and how they work and everything. Some people really flourish in a shorter period of time where having someone there and you go in for a couple days and you're in and out and everything. Some people that really works. Some people it works to work on their own time here and there and slowly build it up. So yeah, no, I mean, they both have their pros and cons. I would say there's less pressure when you're at home, obviously, right?
True.
You have unlimited takes. I mean,
Yeah,
you do at a studio, right?
Yeah, but it's like there's time,
a bit less
money and all that stuff.
No, exactly. Yeah, I would say that's the one thing where you're not in a space where you're usually, right? And at least as a guitar player, I'm sure you can relate. Like if you're not in a space where you feel comfortable, if the temperature is kind of off, your guitar doesn't feel quite the same and everything. It's not the same as being right in your comfort zone, right? So
Yeah. I mean, from my experience, and I don't have that much experience in like actual going into a studio because it's like especially what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of stuff for production ourselves.
Nice.
But from the times I feel like it's almost like you're, I don't know if like you could say going to war, but it would be almost like because you have to go in there, like you have to be well rehearsed. You have to be well rehearsed. You have to step in there. Like, okay, let's do this, get the takes, and then get the fuck out, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. No, it's about, unless you can afford time in a studio, it's really about efficiency, right? And I think that some people really, really, whether it be more of a type A that have all the details fleshed out right from the get-go, they'll flourish in that type of environment. We're a band that changes this, we'll move this piece around, this doesn't feel right, let's extend this part, let's shorten this part. So it lends to having the comfort of recording at home and everything, but we're definitely trying to rein it into a certain period of time as opposed to an indefinite amount of time. Right?
Do you ever feel like, because I think if I've heard a couple of your songs, I'm sure that the studio process would be different than playing live. Right, like you've played, I know you played live, like
yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So specifically with Skybound, Skybound. Sorry, have you ever had like any issues, kind of bringing a recording or something that you guys made to life live?
I think we choose the songs that we're playing in the set, so that they best lend to translating live. So it's definitely something where some of the songs would definitely require, whether it be way more extensive backing tracking or, for example, having a keyboardist, which now we have. So it's something where in the past we've been not choosy, but cognizant of which ones would work in a live setting, where it's like, this song sounds great, without all the extra bells and whistles or whatever, and it translates, right? Okay. So it's just
right?
I
think that's an interesting point too, because it lends itself to like having like you said about being comfortable, but also like convenience nowadays with having the technology we have. But it's cool that you brought that up about like you're still trying to keep it within a time limit, because I think that really just like shows that the broad picture of all of what we just talked about is about balance, because it's like you need that creative space, you need that time, but you also do need to crunch yourself a bit, because that's what as human beings pushes us to actually kind of like peak that. And I find it's interesting because nowadays, it's like you said, you want to kind of hold yourself to a bit of a time standard because you have so much convenience to be able to give yourself time at home. Because back in the day when like in this 60s, 70s when they were recording, it's like you said, they spent all their time like refining these parts, knowing like over and over, because they knew they could only go in and tape it, and then if they paid for that whole roll of tape and it was shit,
time and money was of the essence.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a different dynamic, but it's the same. Now it's like, okay, now it is cool to have more control and more time, because even with the band, the Gravelines, one of our good friends' band that I was working with now, is like, because we took a couple more sessions to add like vocal layers and stuff after, it made the songs better. Yeah. So it's like that was a convenient thing for us, but at the same time, we held ourselves to a certain standard of like, okay, don't linger on it either.
No, exactly. Yeah,
be a rabbit hole.
And learning to really, for creators, is learning to commit to something is tricky, because you can always tamper with things, you can always change and remix and slightly change little bits and everything, and we've been no stranger to that in the past.
What is the definition of like Skybound? I'm curious.
Well, it was something that I'd kind of, it was in a movie that I'd seen. It wasn't an action movie. It was like it It might have been Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo. It's like a dark political movie about water quality or something. but it was something where I had heard that word and then I had looked up. It's like, oh, okay, it's like a game thing, and then I had seen kind of. I was very into, especially in the earlier internet, when you have these forums with wallpapers, just like pixel art and just various pages for like creators to put up their own art. And I had like a bunch of wallpapers that would change on my laptop of just like Nintendo or whatever, right? And it fit kind of my early ideas of like, oh, I want to make music that's colorful and kind of reflects this idea of like, it's also the kind of Ghibli beautiful scenery type thing, which we certainly have in Ottawa in peak moments, certain times of the year, in the fall and in the spring.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
In certain parts of the city. So it's something where, especially I used to bike more in the city when I was in college. So just being able to kind of take that all in definitely lends itself to the name and everything. So it was kind of a kind of a dough ball of a bunch of different stuff. Kind of.
I love that.
Do you, especially like with all musicians nowadays, social media is such a big player, it's a big player. Like whether we like it or not, we basically have to essentially take it upon ourselves to learn how to social media. Yeah. So how has that been for you? And are there any techniques, or what are you doing to adapt to the current standards? I guess.
Standards, yeah. So this has been a contentious one for us. Well, it's just something where I think that any avenue you want to use is valid. I think that it's truly what you choose to put out needs to be something that you're 100% like, this is what I love to do, and this is the most pure form of my expression. Because regardless if it does well or not, at least you know that part of control that you have is intact, right? And it's just so tricky, because I know that there are styles and I know there are things now that are popular and are things to get you ahead. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with those. We've chosen to step away from that and really just zone in on, we are making the absolute best music that we can, regardless if it's popular or not, that will stand the test of time for us. And if anyone else loves it, freaking great, right? But it's just about, it's just, especially now, why would you choose to make music that pleases others? And
especially that gets lost. I know what you mean.
It's just that core reason of, why did you start music in the first place? Why did you fall in love with the first couple albums that you listened to, right? It's because that thing of, I want to do this, right? So
absolutely,
I don't know. It's so you can like we certainly post and we certainly do all the things that we need to do and everything. But as far as making it a focal point and everything, we've tried to keep it a secondary, not as important thing of, constantly posting and constantly doing that and everything. We try to stay out of people's feeds and everything. We'll post once a week and everything, and just always new stuff that's not like a repeat of things and everything. We try to never be spammy, because
you get momentum that way, though. It's really cool, because you'll get momentum, you'll get attention, you'll be able to sort of promote yourself, but you are maintaining the integrity, and it's like, and people will resonate with that. Like I actually really love that you brought that up, because one of my favorite producers of all time, Rick Rubin. Do you know Rick Rubin is amazing. Yo, there's I can't remember which interview it is. It might have been with Kendrick, but it was like he's talking about, he's like, I always tell people, he's like, and it's literally related to what you said. It's like, make music as if you're the audience. He's like, that you're gonna love. He's like, and everyone else can just follow along. And because if it's truly from the heart, and it's true, and if you actually think about it, Bob Dylan, for example, like, here's a good example, because it's like, man, you could easily be like, his vocals are just subpar, and it's not to be like a dick about it. Like, I'm not the greatest singer, but it's just like his storytelling, his passion, like where he actually went with the music is like, that's what resonated with people. He unapologetically followed that formula of like, this is what I want, and then that's what resonates with people in the end, right? It doesn't have to be like
and then it goes on to influence how many people then?
Absolutely, yeah. Right. And it's like, how fast did Gucci Gang, for example, get like millions upon millions of views, and then all of a sudden, like, except for now, does it get brought up,
Yeah.
right?
Hey, listen,
and it's not
like,
the shit.
I'm not gonna fault anyone for shaking their booty on TikTok. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want.
Yeah,
It's just not something you'll catch us.
Apparently,
doing. It's just that's
fair enough. That's
Right.
how I feel.
Yeah.
You know what? Be yourself,
Yeah.
but
You just gotta be genuine with it.
apparently they're. I was reading an article. I mean, don't quote me on it, but apparently they're thinking about banning TikTok in the States.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's owned by like a Chinese company, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's associated with there's claims, so to speak,
Well,
of spy and spyware or
Well, it's
whatever,
'cause,
or
I
just
mean-
like access to information and data and all that
Because
stuff.
companies in China are mandated to give a certain amount of reports to the government and everything. So you can assume that a lot of large companies they're beholden to the Chinese government. So
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's crazy.
yeah,
And it's like you said.
whatever.
I mean, people have access to information. They'll do with it what they will. Like it is.
No, yeah.
But it's like it's just like you said. It's like if you can just for your own peace of mind and sake, if you can avoid it. But it's like at the end of the day, I'm almost like in the sense of like I don't necessarily want to use TikTok myself
No, I
based
don't
on
use
a
it.
lot of factors. But
never used it, yeah.
at the same time, it's like. I feel like my information is accessible enough being online that it's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Unless
yeah.
I'm directly sending it to someone, it's like someone will be able to find it. And it's like, but I'm an insignificant, not
No, it's-
insignificant,
no,
but
no,
you know what I
in-
mean?
in-
It's
in
like
the
I'm
grand
not,
scheme of things and everything.
yeah, in the
There's
grand
certain
scheme.
steps.
like,
There's certain steps that you can take to limit your
Yes.
privacy.
Oh yes, you can. Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
It's just I think that when it comes to it, making music, making art, making anything, making a business, whatever, right? It's that, right? So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? Just to kind of like not 180, but like going to a different subject. I remember the first time I actually saw you guys.
Yeah.
Now I'm just cluing into it, and this was back with Randy.
Okay.
But he was playing with Salem.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And then you guys were playing a Skybound, and then there was another band. Oh, it's
That was at
13th
Askapunk.
floor.
That was
Yeah, it was Askapunk. It was 13th floor, right? That played as
I think
well.
so. I
Or Jake
think
on
so.
Okay,
I think so.
because I remember that was
I've
the
heard
first
of
time.
13th floor.
Yeah. It's, do you know Jake?
They were great.
No.
Jake one.
Oh.
Drummer. Works with.
Oh, I think I
on
met him
Special
at
Days.
the Brass Monkey at one of the
Yeah,
shows. With
yeah,
the Rage.
yeah. With the Rage show. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He played actually. So I got to do a Rage set with.
Which was amazing. That looked amazing.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
I
it was
fucking
pretty cool,
loved
actually.
it, man.
That
I
was so
actually,
much
you know what?
You
I
gotta do
felt
more-
good about
You got
it.
to
I
do
got-
more rock shows.
I would
You
love
just
to.
gotta-
I would love to. Like, I would love to do that again. I told the guys, I was like, I'm fucking down. Like, because I actually felt
Yeah, you
like
get away with it, too, like,
People,
really
people
well.
said it after they were like, man, you really encompassed like
really
the kind
good.
of version.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
awesome.
thank you, dude.
Yeah,
And you
because
know,
I saw the videos of it. And I was like, this is
appreciate that, yo. And Jaquan actually hopped on Bulls on Parade, which is so cool. Yeah,
really?
Yeah. So Jaquan actually
Those are all
played,
smashers,
and
though.
him and
Like, it's
Misha were.
literally an entire set of just like
fucking bangers.
What amazing songs can
Yeah,
you choose from?
I
And
know,
It's
it's
like
like-
the easiest set to choose. Like
so
what
great.
order? of
Any
awesome
order.
songs should
yeah,
you do?
any order. It's like, well, Killing in the Name is gonna hit either way, and we know that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so it's like beginning end doesn't matter, and then the rest are also hype that it doesn't like, you know what I mean? It's not one of those things you have to end with Killing in the Name
No,
of
no,
to
you don't.
satisfy the crowd.
You
Like,
can end with anything.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. But I guess my main point was like that it was cool because that was like the beginning of one of my kind of first when I was still in
Okay.
MIA
Yes,
and
at
stuff.
Sky-
One of my
Askapunk, yes.
yeah, at the Askapunk. Yo,
Yeah.
rest in peace. By the way, that place
Yes.
was legend.
James Reed. thank
And
you.
yeah, and straight up, like I just remember, like that was my first integration into like seeing the live scene and how interwoven it was. So I think it's
Yeah.
cool because you guys are all part of that memory, and it's like I'm all still friends with all you guys, but now it's like we're all still in music, you know.
Yes.
And it's like, and I was doing the class at that time, like MIA and stuff.
Oh, right,
And like,
yeah,
because
you
I think
were-
it was
you were
that
at
long
Algonquin.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right,
And
yeah.
and now it's just like cool to see it kind of come full circle because it's like we're clearly passionate about it, you know. We're all still in it. We're all still doing it. We're trying to create content, music, like. So I just think it's anyway. There's no real point to why I brought that up. I guess it's just more the fact that like
Yeah.
I find it cool how things like that can come around and like the memory of it makes me realize just how like integral it is in my life.
No, exactly.
So yeah.
And
Anyway, yeah.
Randy wasn't in the band, but back then, like he wasn't in the band.
Yeah,
yet,
but it's
right?
almost
So-
weird, like
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
No,
right?
exactly.
Like-
Yeah. He was doing lights actually for that. So that was cool.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, I remember that.
You wouldn't have to go like I'm just wondering like you don't have to talk necessarily about like your job or anything, but do you have a job and how is that managing like because some people are full-time musicians, right? Like and it's hard to be a full-time musician, especially like it's just hard. 100% hard.
It's incredibly hard. To
Yeah.
be a full-time
So how do
musician.
you manage working and kind of doing this project at the same time, right?
So I work in merch. So
no way.
I worked in like youth programming and childcare for many years prior
Oh,
to the pandemic,
cool.
and had to kind of pivot because the opportunities and all that stuff. Did some warehouse stuff for a while, and then really just I got a message from a friend who also plays in bands. His band Laughing in Slow Motion is awesome.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Kyle, he got me in at the shop, and basically we do embroidery, screen printing,
Oh, cool.
print and everything. So I've been doing that for the last year and 4 months.
Right
There's
on.
There's
So
a
it's
bit of
been
irony
really
though there.
awesome.
You could
Pardon?
it's a bit of ironic in a way because you could use some of those skills
real.
for the
Yeah.
band.
It's resulted in some cross promotional stuff where I've done stuff for artists and vice versa.
That's
and everything. It
great.
leads to that.
Do you do both, like studio and then also play shows, or are you more like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, let's just concentrate on this?
Oh, well, I mean, we tour as much as we can.
Okay.
Well, obviously, with 4 people all working full time, and one's married, and everyone has a life, so it's certainly as much as it's convenient for 4 people, right? But yeah, no, it's definitely something where having the tools and the funding and everything to do it all yourself, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, we tour sporadically throughout the year, and we try to keep Ottawa shows to a minimum of maybe 1 to 2 a year, to really kind of make it more of an event as opposed to
When you're
playing
talking
our
about
shows.
touring, like
clever.
where are you going?
It's all regional stuff, so Ontario and
Montreal?
Quebec, and like pushing into the East Coast this year and stuff.
Oh, really?
So,
Nice.
And how do you find connections? What do you do?
well,
for networking?
it's through doing show exchanges and
Really?
I mean, I've been to enough shows, and through the kind of years of doing this, of kind of understanding the exchange of offering help to somebody else, and it's never about expecting anything back. It's just about doing things to help other artists, and then offers come and people remember you, and it's just a matter of I think getting yourself involved into the scene just because you enjoy it, right?
Networking.
But it's tricky because networking has that thing of wanting to get something out of someone.
You know what? I agree.
Right.
You know what? I'll reword it actually as like building community.
Yeah,
I'd say is a
'cause-
good way to look at it. Yeah.
Because a lot of I know you guys are familiar with the idea of so many of the collaborations and things that start oftentimes are just like DMs, just like, oh, want to do this, want to collab. It's so informal now, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just off the cuff and it's creative, right? So I think that's important. So yeah, no, we tour, and we definitely like to take breaks to really get the creative flow for whatever we're doing next, kind of in motion and everything. So yeah, it's definitely what makes the most sense, what's the most pragmatic thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean
Try not
that
to worry too much about it. So.
absolutely. And at the end of the day, that is it's smart for yourself because you also give yourself breaks between these things. You're not
Yeah.
like forcing yourself into one corner.
Yeah.
But it also is good at maintaining the broadness of what you're trying to do, because it's like to thrive as a band, you have to kind of encompass all those things. Like it's like you can't just survive off of studio stuff. You can't necessarily just survive off of live because you have to have something to refer to. So it's like it's finding that median. So it's good that
finding
you
the balance,
guys actually pay attention to almost like
Yeah.
the trend behind it.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was thinking it's actually it's cool to what I'm noticing is you have clear goals and objectives, and it's something that maybe I've lacked in the past in terms of music, you know what I mean, that I've been applying to, but it's really cool
inspiring.
to see. Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Thanks. I mean, it's definitely been something that's been in the works since 2017. We've been pretty long game oriented for a long time now, and it's something where I think to really whatever your definition of flourish or succeed in this is, to hopefully just keep enjoying doing it as long as you want to do it, right? So we want to do this for as long as we can, and we want to progress and get better, so it's just about making it as sustainable as possible and everything, fiscally and emotionally, right? Because burnout is a real thing, especially
Especially
how
jobs.
it is working a full-time job,
Yeah.
and a full life of things, right? So it's just really, really, really important. Yeah. So.
I guess just to touch on one more point, going back to like traveling and touring and stuff, like is there any place in particular you've been or that you like to go, or a venue the first time you went maybe you liked to return to, anything that falls under that category that you were actually kind of surprised you had like a good fan base, or like maybe like a really good turnout? Like, do you have any shows that stand out, or a certain city that maybe just like hit you some type of way? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of shows that they stick in your head for whatever reasons. Like the crowd was great here, or just the vibe of the venue was really nice here. I think. Especially when it comes to performing, it's contentious because I'm not a nervous performer, but I'm very aware of what is happening performance wise, and often I miss a lot of what's happening in front of me sometimes. So it's just important to kind of like breathe and just absorb it all, right? So we played at Lee's Palace in Toronto. This is like before the pandemic. Like a lot of our touring we had done prior, and we're kind of getting back into it. And that was just a really great show to be at. They shot part of Scott Pilgrim there. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Yeah, so it's just and just being in a room with a bunch of awesome bands and everything. So yeah, no, it was just I mean all the shows really have positives to them, right? I enjoy doing this, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, why would I sacrifice my money and time off and all this stuff for this, right?
That's a great answer, honestly.
Right?
Like, it's almost better than honing
and
in.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Are the tasks divvied a certain way within the band?
So I would say just the nature of myself and Jameson being the kind of captains of the ship, we do definitely kind of do the Lars and James of Metallica of we're kind of steering the ship. We know what direction we're going.
Okay.
So a lot of the decisions kind of fall to us, which is perfectly fine. But a lot of the technical, like gear and the hardware, I let Jameson do because he is the technical wizard. He does all the routing. He does all the like live preparing stuff and everything. And then as far as the the artistic direction and the outreach and stuff and everything, that's mostly me. However, it's something where I enjoy collaborating more, and I'm like, please, let's collaborate more. So more is being kind of spread amongst other people now, which is nice. It's nice to be able to have.
But it's great too that you appreciate just what each of you brings to the table as well.
No,
It's like you
exactly.
probably learn so much off of each other every time. So
No,
it's
exactly. Yeah. And also like just the idea of the music is better off for it too now. So
right on.
Yeah.
That's sick. And honestly, not to wrap up
Yeah,
just
yeah,
quite
no
yet,
problem,
but just
no
before
problem,
we
yeah.
do, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Kayo-Tea. My man Kayo-Tea, our homie Kayo-Tea. Yeah, we hooked Tiago
Right here.
up here with a little
Ginger
ginger mint. Yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite, hands down. And it's hard not to be biased because he's one of my best friends since we were young. But it's like, honestly, Kayo-Tea is like the best tea I've had. So it's just like, Kayo-Tea, enjoy the ego stroke. But yeah, honestly. And before we end it off, like, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on before we?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, Skybound is the focus when it comes to a lot of what I pour a lot of my creative into. I will say that I am going to be releasing a solo black death metal album this year.
Sweet.
I have two vocalists from two bands in Ottawa who are doing the screaming on it. So
Nice.
it's coming out later this year, but basically, just quickly, just kind of touching on a lot of the things of just being genuine and just really expressing all the music that you have in your head. The past year, I've been kind of making literally for fun projects of like this is a vintage rock project, this is an electronic project, this is a metal project, and it's just getting all these like I want to participate and I just want to do all this type of music just for the sake of it, right? And just getting all that out of my head. So that's kind of the next one being unleashed is the most evil, fast, brutal
Yes.
God-hating metal ever. So yeah, that's coming this year. So.
That's wicked. I'm looking forward to it.
You said originally that you were kind of, I guess, unsure about Skybound, and because you wanted to start this project for like going back, full circle. What advice would you give to people who are listening in terms of like kind of following in that same route?
I would say that. See, that's tricky because I mean it's always been an intuition to just want to create art, right? And I think it's really about feeling ready to do it yourself, right? And it has to be a genuine feeling, right? I think that for creators, it's really important for you to really take a look at like what gets you excited about your creative, whatever it is. And really, I know this sounds cheesy, but at the beginning of things, it's really important to write down a mission statement. It's unbiased. It's before any money's involved. It's before any other people are involved. And it's a very pure intent of like, this is why I'm getting into this, right? And when you never forget that, you're never going to leave your path of like doing it for different reasons, right? All these other factors can come into it and contribute to it, but you're never going to waver on that creative of doing exactly what you want to do. And that can change, like album to album, business to business, it can change. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's just genuinely what you want to do. You should try to do it. It's one of the few things you can take and full into your control. And I think, I don't know, you as a creator are better off for it just mentally, right?
Yeah, I never even thought of that. That's
right.
Genius, in my opinion, man. That's fucking sick.
Absolutely. And it's cool because it actually does apply to a broader sense, not only to art, but just in life. And I'm not going to go into the whole quote, but just really briefly, I brought this already up in a podcast, but it always reminds me of that Jim Carrey quote. He was just talking about his dad, like failing at something he didn't want to do. And he's like, then you might as well take the time to do what you love. And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I'd rather almost be like struggling and just like paycheck to paycheck doing something I actually passionate and care about than like thriving in an environment I hate.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, exactly. I mean, there's obviously practical elements of life that obviously you want to try to do your best at, but it's about having the balance of everything that I can do in my life that I can take control of, that I can do the best I can. Just try to do that.
No one's living every day doing everything fucking perfect. No, exactly. Like it's like literally every day we're just trying, man. Yeah. We're just trying, and it's like we're just having more knowledge and information on how to try.
Exactly. We try.
Yeah, man. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure having you on, Tiago.
You so
like,
much. I really
thank you,
man.
Seriously, like I look forward to hearing that death metal. Please link me up when it's done.
I will.
Is there any, just for anyone listening, is there any Skybound stuff on the way right now? Is there anything just particular, like next show that you want to talk about, just real quick? Like,
so we'll be hitting the road in beginning of summer, so obviously like dates pending for that, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But yeah, until then we're kind of holed up in our creative nook, really kind of building the blocks, the next kind of songs. We haven't written since the spring summer of 2020, so it's we're due.
Incredible.
We're due. Yeah.
And it's like you said, now this is that focus time, right?
Exactly.
It's that part of it. Well, honestly, man, thank you so much for coming out. This has been a pleasure, and I hope she enjoys the tea as well.
Absolutely.
And definitely love to have you on again soon. And even we're gonna have Randy on eventually, so who knows? Maybe we can eventually do a duo one as a follow up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, thank you so much.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good one, dude.